Which of these fish surfboards are best for you? Yes, you. Well, let's watch and find out. Up, and there is my beautiful voice in echo. And that has been canceled. And before we get into the video, guys, if you can please just smash like, maybe drop a comment, which one of these you prefer. Um, I have my answer. I mean, I have one right behind me right there. An awesome, awesome board right here, the album TWINSMAN. I've had the Almeric Pod Mod, and it is also an awesome board, but they are two very different boards. But before we start, like I said, please smash subscribe, hit like. Quick little funny side story. So last live stream, we went into overtime, and I have the glorious ZV1 filming. The Ulanzi fan that I used to power the ZV1, it died. The camera shut off. Therefore, my USB-C cable that goes from the Mac Studio to the camera, it like blew up or something. So it doesn't even work anymore. I did a test live stream. The cable isn't working. So I'm having to use a Mac charger cable. And it seems to be working okay. But lo and behold, Murphy's Law did rear his ugly head at the beginning of this live stream. So I had to readjust, but luckily we're back on track here because nothing is going to stop me from working and making these live streams. So the Almeric Pod Mod, and we're already losing people because we only have 8 seconds attention spans anymore. But the album TWINSMAN versus the Almeric Pod Mod. Which of these boards really is designed for what you need to ride? Now, let's start with the shape of this board. When you look at a swallowtail fish like the album TWINSMAN right here, or the Almeric Pod Mod, that little swallowtail usually means that you are going to be in Gravel City. Now, here is the catalyst for why you should straight up go for the Pod Mod over the TWINSMAN. If you want a board that's going to be a groveling fish, that is what the Pod Mod is. The Almeric Pod Mod was the first of its kind, I think. I mean, besides the lost RNF 96, the Pod Mod was made to replace your shortboard in a time where we were all riding potato chip shortboards. Fast forward to the 2000s, the late 2010s, Matt Parker comes out with the TWINSMAN, which also is a board to replace your shortboard, but it is not a board to replace your fish surfboard. Now, this is what's kind of funny is because in our modern days, we have groveling boards. We have fishes, we have retro fishes, we have boards to ride sloppy crap waves. Usually a board that looks like the Pod Mod or the album TWINSMAN is used to make crap slop waves. But the TWINSMAN actually excels in good waves. You can watch my album TWINSMAN review, which I'll leave in the description. I'll also leave my Channel Islands Pod Mod review in the description. I did pretty thorough reviews on both of these with surfing examples, and even the dimensions are slightly different. I mean, the 6.0 TWINSMAN comes in at around 37 liters. The 6.0 Pod Mod is quite a bit more than that. The 6.0 Pod Mod is 39.1 liters. So not that much more, but it's enough more where you can see if you're going to get a similar Pod Mod to a TWINSMAN, really that still is your best bet. They are sized similar enough, but the Pod Mod is essentially beefier than the TWINSMAN. The Pod Mod also has a much rounder nose area. So if you look at the thumbnail, look at the board side by side, the TWINSMAN actually is pretty bladey. It's pretty knifey. Shout out the artist Bladey. He's a up and coming musician who made a song with Skrillex. So he's past the come up. Now he's on top. But the TWINSMAN is like a knife. It's a sharp tool used to shred like crazy sick conditions. It can grovel, which I proved in my review, but the Pod Mod grovels heaps better due to a few reasons. One of them is just because of the podmod's bigger nose. What I mean by bigger is it stays wider through the nose. So once you get to the tip of the nose, the podmod has more planing surface up by the nose. The Twinsman, once you start getting towards the middle of the board and going up, it gets a lot more knifey. And the tip of the Twinsman is like sharp. It's like needle sharp. Same with the two swallowtail tips. They're also both very sharp. So right away, the pod mod, like you would think, oh well, the pod mod is the better board here. Like that's what I should get. Well, what are you getting this board for? When I bought the Album Twinsman, shout out right there, I bought it as a high performance board. Now I did think it was going to ride a little more grovelly, even with the people on the Reddits and the internet saying it wouldn't. I oversized it a teeny bit by getting the 6.0 to be able to grovel, or if I needed it in a slightly bigger surf, it would still work okay. The pod mod, you really shouldn't oversize that much just due to how it's shaped, but it actually works really well oversized, especially for intermediate surfers. This is why the company TORQ pretty much took the pod mod and made it their main surfboard, which for many years, that was like the number one torque board was the pod mod torque. It was almost like synonymous with pod mod was now a torque board. Channel Islands even stopped making the pod mod. I have no clue why. And torque kind of was the only way to get the pod mod. I see on their Channel Islands website, they seem to have some pod mods. I click warehouse stock. It doesn't really go anywhere, but it's still on the website. So I think you can maybe still get one, but it's kind of been phased out. Whereas the Album Twinsman is like one of the kind of best selling boards, like in terms of what people want and what they're after. I do see the Twinsman on the internets for sale a good amount, but it is just more around now because the pod mod was somewhat phased out. Again, I'm not sure why, but it really redefined like what a great surfboard is, what a fish surfboard is for groveling. The Twinsman, when it came out, there was already a sea of groveling boards, so it was deceiving because you're like, oh, look, here's a twin fin, like swallowtail fish. That's gonna be good in like crappy waves. Well, again, no, it's good in good waves. But how so? It's a twin fin. Like, how can a twin fin kind of excel in good waves? And that's where I think Matt Parker really started kind of changing how twin fins surf waves. The pod mod isn't a twin fin. The pod mod is a 5-fin slot, and it really is should be written as a tri-fin. You can ride the pod mod as a quad, but even on the Almeric website, it says to ride the pod mod based on recommended setup thruster. So again, they give you the 5-fin setup just to please the quad enthusiasts. The Twinsman, you're not getting a 5 fins. You're getting literally 2 fin inserts. That's all you get. And then you want to have like a little bit of hold in those fins because if you've never ridden a twin fin, like they're slidey, they're hard to ride. They're not really like the best high performance boards usually. Usually a twin fin means like you're going to be cruising like Donovan Frankenrider and like just trying to cruise. You're not going to be shredding hard. And then when they came out with all the Twinsman clips of Josh Kerr just shredding, you're like, oh wait, the Twinsman's like the high performance machine of the century. So it's funny how these two boards, although very similar in shape and design, once you start unraveling like the minute details of them, they're really different. The Twinsman gets a lot thinner in the tail and the nose. The Twinsman has a platform deck that shout out the sweet potato, which does this like on steroids. Basically, you have a flat top, and then the rails kind of curve out for a while, and this creates somewhat of a like platform. Whereas you would think it's like a boat where each side can go in and dip in a little bit, so it works really nice. But what ends up happening with the platform is like it ends up being kind of it's not as like knifey for some reason until you get speed. That's where it really excels. Whereas a board like the podmod is like pretty flat on the top, hence it can like kind of go through dribble, but then it maybe won't be able to like hit its edge and its rail as great as that platform. Which is interesting because the Twinsman and like the sweet potato are like those are definitely separate boards, but they both utilize that platform concept. But the sweet potato does it, I think, because it still wants you to be able to turn once you start going faster. The Twinsman does it because that's just what the board is made to do. It's made to like kind of go fast with some speed, and then once you start engaging, that kind of fullness and slant of the rails mixed with the twin fin setup creates like a really nice dynamic where you're not just like sliding out. You actually have tons of hold and makes the board feel really nice. Um, More high performance, I think, than the pod mod. Um, I rode the pod mod for years and years, and I would just keep riding that board if they didn't discontinue it because I think it's one of the best shapes ever made. And really, my whole style and surfing and boards I like were based on the Merrick pod mod. Um, they now have the G Skate, which I think is kind of supposed to be the pod mod, but it's not. It's a lot less volumed out and a lot smaller. Um, if you look at the G Skate versus the pod mod, the G Skate's like stock templates um are like way smaller. So, or actually not way smaller, just a little bit smaller. Well, it is thinner. So the 510 G Skate is 20 inches wide, 34.5. The 510 Pod Mod is 27 eighths, 35.8. So pretty much the G Skate is the Pod Mod mixed with a little bit of the Twinsman. Now that I look at the G Skate on the website, it has the little indention as well down the line of the board, right where those two fins are, before you get to that swallow. But the G Skate is definitely more similar to the Pod Mod than the Twinsman. Um, the Twinsman is almost like if you took a 1980s shortboard and made it into a twin fin. It's a really interesting board, and I think it has been, I'm going to feel bad saying this, kind of slightly overhyped because you have to be like a pretty good surfer to ride the Twinsman. The Twinsman isn't made for beginner surfers, it's barely made for intermediate surfers. Twin fins in general are going to be, unless you're riding like a California twin fin and it's just like this massive retro swallowtail and it's just like beefy and chunky and almost like a go fish or a two fish by Rob Machado. Unless you're going to go like that crazy wide style, the twin fin in itself is like a difficult fin setup to wrap your head around because it's slidey, which is nice because you're going to do turns and slide around. But then once you start trying to like bottom turn and kind of drive and get speed and pivot, that's where you get kind of weirded out because you start sliding too much, especially backside. So it's really there's a fine line between like the twin fin being a fun board and the twin fin actually being able to ride like good waves and it being a high performance board. Twin fins generally don't have the most drive in a classic drive to bottom turn sense. Twin fins are fast. I think they're the fastest fins because you don't have as much drag. If you think about it, fins are just like something in the water to create resistance as the board flows through the water. A twin fin is going to be just two fins, so there's a ton of water spewing through the middle of the board, letting the board really go down the line fast, which in a sense that is drive. But when there's no hold to the drive, it kind of ends up feeling more like you're just on a sheet of ice in your car and you can't hit the brakes. You're just kind of going. That's why the 2+1 setup is really the most favorite setup by most people because even just a teeny bit of hold in that middle back fin lets you pivot and lets you get some resistance off a bottom turn. So you're adding the drive and speed of the twin fin with the ability to pivot off a bottom turn with that middle fin. Somehow the Twinsman figured it out, and I think it has to do with just the bottom contour right before you get to the back of the swallow, and just having the correct upright fins in here. But the Twinsman is not the slidiest board ever. It's holds really well. I rode really big waves last weekend, and it's pretty much my step up board now, more so than even the mashup. The pod mod, it doesn't work the same at all. Once the waves start getting even bigger, it starts acting like any other kind of fishy board and gets too slippery, slidey, and unless you like that feeling, you can't control it as much. So, like, if you're looking for like an awesome high performance board that is a twin fin that's going to replace your high performance shortboard, that's what the Twinsman is. If you want like a high performance fish, that's what the pod mod is. They're not as interchangeable as you would think based on their designs being pretty similar. Um, I have ridden the pod mod and pumping surf all over the world. It used to be the only board I would ride. I rode it in Australia. I rode it in Panama. I rode the pod mod in New Zealand, Indonesia, and it really never let me down. I mean, the only time it let me down is when I got just too big. But even putting in different fins can help that issue. Um, One other part, the problem with the pod mod where it kind of can get a little iffy is when it's really top to bottom and throwy. Any board like the pod mod or even the Twinsman, when it's kind of relatively flat and doesn't have like the most rocker at the nose, that's going to cause any top to bottom throw a little bit of a pearl. Most standard shortboards, because they get skinnier and the nose does have some flip, it doesn't pearl as much. One thing I was super like didn't really understand, but looking at it, I was like, oh, this is really interesting. Is the sweet potato board has a lot of rocker in terms of like the nose rocker. You can see when the board's flat, it goes up. When you're paddling on the sweet potato, it does feel very flat. So what I think he did with the sweet potato, Dan Mann, is like keep it flat, but then give the nose a good amount of rocker. Just because such a big, wide, flat board like that is so prone to nose diving that he gave the nose a bunch of flip up, whereas you don't feel like you're gonna nosedive that much on the sweet potato, which is pretty cool. Um, the pod mod, I think, probably even doesn't nosedive as much as the Twinsman, just because the Twinsman does have kind of a beak nose where it kind of like does like a little bit of inversion right at the nose, which does help it kind of plow through the water more as opposed to like skim on top. So it won't nosedive necessarily, but it might dip under a teeny bit, but then be able to kind of come back up and surface, kind of like a boat that is plowing through the water. But yeah, let me know in the on the chat, guys. Like, have you ever had one of these boards? I mean, the pod mod is like such a classic shape that I feel like most people have at least ridden it a couple times. I would love to have another one in my arsenal. I got the torq pod mod, and I thought I liked it, but then one day I realized, shout out torq, that the torq material it's not for me. It's not for me. Could be for you, but it's not for me. It's extremely stiff, not much flex, and if you get an oversized fish torque board, it's just your legs are running over trying to turn that thing. And I was not that stoked at all because I was really looking forward to like having the pod mod back in my life. And that's the only option is having it in the torque material right now. So I think that the Twinsman as well is like where I think it excels if you don't really ride fishes that often, but like you just want the twin fin feel. Because I mean, short boards in general don't usually work that great as a twin fin. Um, you need a little bit of like heft towards the mid and the tail, because if you just have like a regular short board and then this is just a twin fin, it can sometimes not be the best. I mean, I know there was that one Merrick twin fin that was pretty skinny, the Fishbeard. So the Fishbeard to me is kind of like a shortboard that they just made a twin fin. And even the dimensions aren't that fishy. The dimensions of the Fishbeard, the 511 is only 33 liters. And it's 20 inches wide. So it's like that's like a shortboard size that just has a twin fin. Now, that's going to be a difficult board to ride because you're not going to have much hold at all. It's going to be pretty skatey. And I've heard mixed opinions on the Fishbeard. It's like a really cool looking board. I think that's what draws a lot of people in. Let's even see what like Reddit has to say maybe. Yeah, see, people are saying it's skatey but drivey. It's a beautiful looking board. Paddles easily. It does have a rocker. It's ultra light. Yeah, it's that's the best example of a shortboard that is a twin fin. The TWINSMAN is not like the Fishbeard at all. The Fishbeard doesn't have the step down rails. It's the Fishbeard. If you took like the dumpster dive or even like a shout at the Black Beauty or whatever, some of those older Almeric shapes that were like kind of a beefier shortboard with a squash tail. He just made the squash tail into a swallow. That's kind of what the Fishbeard is. It does have a little bit more girth, more through the tail than like the other Almeric squash tails, but it's I wouldn't really recommend it. I don't think because I've heard kind of weird things, and to me the shapes always looked like it doesn't have enough board to make that twin fin work. There is a decent bit in the Fishbeard in the middle that kind of I can tell like does something, but it needs. I think it needs more volume to be the twin fin that you would buy it for. If Almeric like got their ish together and just came out with the podmod again, I mean that would be like the goated move because like the podmod was really it redefined what the fish surfboard was. It redefined what a performance groveler was, and now you see a lot of boards like mimicking the podmod. I mean, really, a lot of boards now are basically like a TWINSMAN, but I think less platform and a little thinner tails. Really, and these days I'm kind of like a Firewire fanboy and shout them out because they've been letting me demo stuff and have an awesome sweet potato review coming out that I'm working really hard on. That's going to be like pretty awesome. I'm super stoked on this. And the sweet potato board was a board that really like threw me for a loop because it is a monster and it's a kind of an eyesore. Like when you're looking at it like in front of you, you're like this. There's no way this thing's gonna ride good. This thing's like humongous. I even do some shots of the sweet potato next to the mashup and the seaside and beyond. And the sweet potato is like a monstrosity. It's like it looks like a Mondo burger from the Good Burger. It's like Mondo burger, and then Good Burger is the mashup. And even when you hold the sweet potato, it does what the TWINSMAN does. It has like the crazy step down, but even way more drawn out. So you can barely fit it around your arm. It's like a wave storm around your arm. So, but what he did on that board that makes it ride so well is he super thinned out the tail, and then with the swallowtail and the teeny bit of flip up in the nose, it really like actually can hold, I think, in decently sized surf. I mean, not huge surf, but when the internet was first kind of saying that you can't ride the sweet potato once it like gets chest head high, like from my experience, you can definitely still ride it. You just have to know how to ride it. And as long as it's not like too top to bottom. Today I surfed, yeah, it was today, yeah, and the sweet potato on a left, and like it was going great, but then it did kind of suck out, and I could tell that the board just like sucked out under me because there wasn't like enough hold in the board, and it's just so flat till the middle that if you're like putting pressure on the front of the board of the sweet potato, it gets pretty skatey, which I like. But then the back actually has a pretty deep double and then like a little bit of a belly. And at the very end, it kind of gets thin. So it's like a really refined shape for being, when you look at it, you're like, oh, this thing is like just whole as a big log fat fish thingy. But it is a lot of nuance in it. And I think that is a similar with the Twinsman. It's like looks pretty standard in person, and it's like a beautiful board. It is hard to deny, like kind of what Matt Parker has been doing with creating these boards, and just even the resin tint and like the finishing. Like a lot of other companies are somewhat copying him. Um, Not that he was the first to do this, but it's he kind of made it a lot more mainstream when it used to be the white surfboards, and then it was like the crazy checkered flag color surfboards, and then it kind of went to like back to white or back to like just gnarly materials, and then when the album boards started coming out with like the in particular resin tints, it was like, oh, these are like kind of more of a classic look in a world of like 90s nostalgia mixed with just just plain stuff. So it's kind of unique, and it's hard to deny the work of art that a lot of the album surfboards are. Like even if I didn't want to ride the Twinsman, like it's so like nice and pleasant. Oh, my RGB light just went out. That it's like the RGB light makes all the funny colors in the background. So now we have this just boring orange. But it's hard to get rid of the Twinsman once it's in your arsenal. And to be honest, it's like it's to me, it's actually like a almost a not a novelty, but a very you need some wave to surf it, and then you need like it just needs some wave. So it's like as a daily driver, it's not really my daily driver. Right now, my daily driver is like kind of the mashup, but even the mashup isn't really my daily driver because that kind of needs like some wave too. So really, it's like the the machadocado. I do not own it, but that if I had the 510 machadocado, that would be the daily driver. And I've been riding the sweet potato a bunch, which I'm like, all right, this board is like the best board ever. It's just so it's gonna be fun. Like if as long as it's something out there like longboardable, like the sweet potato is awesome. That's why like the pod mod was such a great classic shape because it was like an awesome daily driver. You could always ride stuff on the pod mod. And then when it got a little bigger, it actually still worked really well. Just like when it got too big or like only longboard waves is when I couldn't handle it. So the pod mod covered so much ground that it kind of was like it kind of is the Quiver killer. Shout out Boardroom, boardroom.co.uk. Um, like the pod mod was the OG Quiver killer. Like that covered so much ground that you were just like stoked. Let's see what people think. People see this later, but because I had, like I said, I had the 6.2 torq pod mod, and I really, really tried to make it work. And one day I just had to give up. It did go towards buying the mashup, but I couldn't. I just couldn't. My legs hurt trying to move the board around. The torq material, like the helium firewire material, is so amazing that I kind of thought, oh, maybe like torq will be kind of good, but it's just the company's cool, but so far the only epoxy that I've ridden that I've really enjoyed is like the helium firewire. I'm actually a super big fanboy. I think it's the best surfboard you can be on. I love the get up and go of the helium. I love how light the boards are. I don't mind the buoyancy. I mean, the sweet potato I've been riding is a 510 45 liters. It's like a freaking whale. And the only times I'm noticing is like you just have to have some strength to push up because it's like you're pushing up against the ground because it's not going to go that much in the water. But once you're up and riding, like it feels great. You're just like, wow, this is amazing. Like you get into the wave super early, you're riding it like a longboard, and it's like very nice. Um, so And the dark arts boards, I think, are actually like ride really awesome. I mean, I've only ridden one dark arts board as a dad bod 511. Excuse me, but it was super definitely exceeded my expectations. It was a windy, small day, and supposedly dark arts and epoxy isn't good in windy conditions, but it rode amazing, and it was very much like the helium. It was very get up and go, and then the dad bod is in amazing shape too. So it was like that combo of the dark arts epoxy or carbon fiber, I mean, mixed with the dad bod shape, which is a lot like the machadocado. It's pretty much like a slightly slimmer machadocado. The old dad bod had a squash, kind of a rounder nose, super fun board. And the machadocado is pretty much like a dad bod 2.0. There's a dad bod 2.0 in real life now, but the machadocado kind of took that shape and it like blew it up even more. So really, I prefer the machadocado shape over the dad bod, but there was no denying how much fun that board was, and it was even pretty similar size. The 511 was 37ish liters, the 510 machadocado is 37, 38. So and they ride very similar, very like a bicycle. You know what you're getting. So yeah, guys, I'm getting a little long-winded in the tooth here. In the end, I think if you can find any pod mods, I mean, they're sometimes still in stores. Like, let's just see pod mod for sale on the internet's pod mod for sale. Vapes came up, okay. Oh, Merrick. um, like there are, yeah, I mean, there's still some. I mean, there's one at, oh, there's an XTR epoxy, okay. Unless that is torq. No, I think XTR is what APA uses. Oh, right here, there's a on usurf. Yeah, there's a lot of torq pod mods. I think, unfortunately, most of the pod mods now are the torq. Every now and then I'll see one on cleanline surf, and I'm like, oh snap, might have to scoop a pod mod. But I still think it's one of the best shapes ever made. A lot of other shapes have come from that shape, and now we're at a point where a lot of companies are kind of just experimenting now and trying new things. And you're seeing things like the Paizel Precious, which is, they're grabbing stuff from the past with new tech. And it's like this cool mashup, no pun intended, of just all these shapes combining with shapers, unique vision, mixed with like these different materials you can use now and fin setups. And like the recent Dave Rostovich Stab in the Dark is a great example where it's like there was a ton of different boards that were super unique. There were some ASIMs, there was different materials, and even they were fiberglass with flaxseed or the lamination of the fiberglass, the cloth. So it's cool how like now we're in this whole new world of like all these different materials, all these different shapes. Now people are a little less harsh to judge you based on the surfboard you're riding. So there's so many different options now. Like you can compare boards like the Podmod and TWINSMAN, which are pretty different, but also looking at them, they look pretty similar. So you'd be good having either one. But all right, guys, I appreciate everyone tuning in for another Hero's Journey live stream. Please smash the subscribe, hit like, share with your friends. If you're watching this later, comment below which one you would prefer. Stay tuned for more videos. Till next time, peace.